Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live for what's going to be a great, great show. We have so much talent in the room tonight, once again, in the form of strong Black men, Black dads who are going to come to us tonight and talk about policing. They're going to talk about policing in the Black community. As for me, man, I'm just so emotionally overwhelmed. Having spent the last 2 days in Houston, Texas, man, where I got an opportunity to see, and we'll talk about it some tonight, laying there, the body of George Floyd. And the night before Sunday night, I had an opportunity to engage with family members right there in Cunny Homes Projects, 3rd Ward, Houston, Texas. So we're going to start the show tonight, and we're going to do this and allow people to come in because we don't want them to miss the activity this evening. But we're going to start tonight with some video, just a little video from my time in Houston. This is Dr. Dennis Carpenter. This is the Good Trouble Equity Talk podcast. Join us on YouTube. All you have to do is go to Good Trouble Equity Talk and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm telling you, we had people literally subscribing on the spot in Houston. So we're excited about that. But right now, it's not about that. We're going to kick off the show. Come on into the feed. Come on into the live. If you're out there, share. We got Keith L. Brown, motivator of the Millennium. We got Chris Jones. We got Keldrick Cyber Sap, man. And we're going to talk a little bit about those guys. But we're going to kick the show off here in a minute. We're going to start with some video. Check this out. Wow. Today, we're wrapping up day one here in Houston. Left Kansas City about 12:40 this afternoon, and we bundled up. We put on our gloves. We did our social distancing thing, and definitely lots of mask wearing and hand sanitizer, but we made it. And one of the first things we decided to do was to go to the neighborhood. You know, there's a significant mural. You'll see that video piece. And when we got there, to our surprise, the family was assembled. We had George's uncle who spent time with us, and we engaged with him when he was so proud of the fact that when George made his move to Minnesota, he was one of the first ones to ride up there and go with him. And when we told him we were from Kansas City, man, he said, yeah, we rode through there. So great conversation with George's uncle. And also a young kid in the neighborhood, young guy, who he called George his big bro. And for anybody that spent any time in a Black neighborhood, you know what that means. Big bro is somebody you looked up to, somebody you respected. And the young man who was a football player talked about following in George. Babe, bring people on, baby. It's big. Bring it on. Everything works. So we stood with the family. Baby, share with a bunch of people. But the highlight of the day is the opportunity we had to spend time with George's twin, NBA legend, NBA great Stephen Jackson, who was also out fellowshipping with the family. And out of respect for Stephen, he wanted to have an off-camera conversation. But he did lean into some conversation with us, and we heard about that relationship. But man, one of the most touching parts of that conversation, when we thanked Stephen for really, really helping to shed a light on this, both nationally and internationally, he said, no thanks needed. He was my brother. I'd do anything for this man. No thanks needed. And the big takeaway from Stephen was, I'm doing this. And he looked around, he looked at me. I said, he said, I hope I'm making you all proud. And man, he's doing it basically for the community. He's doing it for the Black community. He's doing it so that we can stop being the victims of police brutality, police violence. We're tired of dying on camera. Made that extremely clear. So we stood with the family today. We stood with Stephen, and what a day. So you'll be getting footage, and we're going to wrap day one. We're going to try and get some rest, and we're back at it again tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Visitation from 12 until 6. We'll probably get out around the noon or 1:30 hour, and we'll definitely be going live on Facebook, and all video will be posted to the Good Trouble Equity Talks YouTube channel. if you're on YouTube, or even if you're not, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to spend the next 24 plus hours engaging around this matter and being a part of living history. Thank you, man. Black Lives Matter. They've always mattered. RIP to George Floyd. His death was not in vain. He's a made man. Thank you.
Tell him to shut the hell up.
Yeah, we out here, Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward.
We live here once again, man. Thank you for blessing the show, man. What's in your glass? Usually how we do this is, we sit and conversate, living room talk about just the community of wine, people loving wine, different fascinations, people, learning, being educated on just the wine industry. But I think today we're gonna try to do it a little bit different, because it ain't really nothing to be celebrating right now. It's things that need to be talked about, things that need to be discussed. But at the same time,
that's why we here. That's why we here. We're gonna be here for the. All right, yeah, we out here, Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward, man. We out here with the family of George Floyd, man. We're just out here, man, to be a support system, to be out here and be on the ground with the family. We're not at an organized protest. We are in the neighborhood. Right here is the neighborhood corner store. As you can see, the mural been painted, and all the respect's been going out, man. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're gonna be here for the next 36 hours, capture this watershed moment, because it's so important. It's so important to change and deconstruct what we know as law enforcement in this country. It's not okay to just kill Black and brown bodies. So that's why we're here. We're here to affect meaningful change, and we're gonna be here with the family as long as we need to be, even after Tuesday, man, because we must capitalize on this moment and this momentum. This is the Good Trouble Equity Talk podcast. We're here, we're live, and we want to thank everybody for being here. We're gonna keep this up. Let's go.
The older people, they really raised me, taught me a lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Good dude.
Good dude, man.
So you grew up on the block with him?
Yeah.
Cool, man. And man, we out here with y'all, man. Y'all be strong, man. Anything you want to say to the people, man, say it. Hey, that's what we doing, man. That's what we here for. This police brutality's got to stop, and we ain't letting up, man. We ain't letting up. After Tuesday, we got to keep going. We got to keep going, man. And we out here, man.
What happened with the malice?
Yes, so as you can see, we really had time to engage in fellowship out in Houston, man. But right now, we got some awesome dads. I'm emotionally full, man. I'm full. I am full. And right now, I'm going to bring in some guys who are ready to really talk as real dads in this space. Give it up one time for Keldrick Sapp, Mr. Cyber Sapp. Now, Cyber Sapp, what's going on, my brother?
Hard work, opportunity.
Hard work and opportunity. Let me tell you something about this brother. You may not know him. He's been behind the scenes on some of the greatest tracks that we've heard in hip hop, especially if you're from the South. Also with Clamper Construction, doing his thing there with all these innovative, personalized furniture pieces, watches, sunglasses, you name it. But if you ever listen to that Gucci Man, Freaky Girl, that's Cyber Sapp on the track, man. Give it up for my boy Cyber Sapp. He in the building.
Yes, sir.
Chris Jones, what's up, my brother, my classmate, my friend? What's up, boy? I can't hear you. You must be muted.
There it is.
What's up, my brother, man? Good to see you. Man, me and Chris, we went to high school together, went to elementary school together. He was at Savannah State when I was at Georgia Southern. He's been all over. He did his military thing, and he's just out there doing great things in his local community. Chris, always, man, always good to see you.
Always. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. Sean Kirkwood, what it do? Kansas City, from St. Louis to Kansas City. What it do, my brother? I can't hear you, man. I need some volume. Kirkwood, can you hear me? Kirkwood, I can't hear you. Are you muted? You must be muted, brother. We can't hear you. No sound.
All right, we're gonna go to Mr. Keith L. Brown, motivator of the Millennium. Keith Brown, let's go, my brother. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Keith L. Brown, Mr. I'm Possible in the building. Dr. Carpenter, man, can y'all hear me, brothers? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I want to say it's not impossible. I'm possible. What's up, Cyber Black Cartel, baby? Black
How about
Cartel.
What you know about Black Cartel?
Oh, man, I know a lot. Listen, y'all know I know a lot, but let me say this. I'm just so honored to be on here with 5 men of purpose. And Dr. Carpenter, man, thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to enhancing everybody that's listening in on tonight, man. And I'm full as well, brother. I am full as well.
Absolutely. Sean Kirkwood, is your volume right?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Sean
Yeah.
Kirkwood, all the way from St. Louis, by way of Kansas City. You here with us, brother? What's going on?
Nothing much, man. Surviving, brother. Surviving, man. Blessed and highly favored, man. Thanks for having me on the show, brother.
Man, Sean Kirkwood is a good brother. He's a good friend. And at one time, man, back when I was superintendent days, he was my board president. But man, cool, man. So glad to have you here, man. And we're going to kick this conversation off. What do you guys think about the video, man? I just got back. I can talk about it all night, but what do you think? Just cold turkey, seeing the video. Anybody jump in. What's on your mind?
I enjoyed it. It was real from the heart. People talking, nothing scripted. Again, just from the heart, real talk. I love it.
Yeah, it was just raw emotions. I mean, listen, there was nothing scripted. There was nothing dressed up. It was raw. It was emotional, and it cuts to the core of our people, because right now we are raw and we are emotional. And that video, it purged a lot of emotions. And so just to be there, to see the pain, to see the hurt, but then it was, I say heart-wrenching, but it was also heartwarming, because you were there on the front lines, you were there on the ground, which makes your work even more relevant, man. So I'm emotionally full right now. And I just want to send a shout out to Black men. Real Black men do cry. Real Black men do cry. I just want to send a shout out as well.
Yep.
Real talk, man. Real talk. Kirkwood, man, how you feeling?
And I'm feeling well, man. Looking at the video, man, it reminds me of something I heard a long time ago. You don't have to be home to be at home. So when you're around good people, when you're around people who, sometimes you just need to tap into your energy source. And, we often do that in our churches and other things around our family members. But, not only do we have the pandemic of racism, but we got the pandemic of COVID is very alive and well. So we haven't been able to tap into those usual sources. So when I saw the video and saw you in another neighborhood amongst people who look like you, think like you, it warmed my heart, man, tremendous.
Hey, man, that's funny you say that, man. Somebody sent me a text today and said, Good Trouble Equity Talks, the tagline should be, you good on every MLK. I mean,
That sums it up.
Good Trouble Equity Talks, good on every MLK, man. But no, we went Cunning Homes Projects, man, right there in the middle of the 3rd Ward, high school that you've heard people talk about. George Floyd being a star basketball and football player, literally walking distance, man, from the housing project. And, speaking of housing projects, we know all about that and small Black neighborhoods. Kelly Sapp, how you feeling, my brother?
I'm good, man. I used to do, I put in some work down in Houston with Hump, them, and Lil Flip. They were right around the corner from where you were at. So I know that area pretty well. And seeing you down there, just like, you're always at home in Houston, man. For some reason, they embrace a lot of people, but they don't make you feel like an outsider. So to see you amongst the people and fellowship, and that was something special for you to experience and to be able to capture and to show it to us as well. So it felt like we were there,
Cool, man. Cool. Appreciate you, brothers, man. 8 minutes, 46 seconds.
That's time.
8 minutes and 46 seconds. And today, we laid George Floyd to rest. So as Black dads, I'm going to kick off with this question. We heard the Reverend today say, we can't just be here now. And when the cameras are gone, we're gone. We got to stay with this family like we need to stay with all of the families who have been in this space. And he pointed to one particular place, and that is the courtroom. Reverend Sharpton said, no doubt the Fraternal Order of Police will fill up that courtroom if we don't bring ourselves into that space too. So as we lay George Floyd to rest today, man, what are the next steps, man? Talk to me about next steps. What should we be doing, black dads in the community? Let's talk policing. What should we be doing next?
Well, I put a little thought. I put a little thought behind it, not just for this call right here, but long term. So I started writing down what are some of the long term goals, and I know that a lot of people are running around saying let's defund and disband police, but I don't particularly agree with that. But I looked at it as more of a reform. But the unions to me are like roadblocks. So if you got to fire everybody to bring hiring back to get around the unions, and then that may be a way. But we have to get to the union and restructure their thought process. They just did a post a few minutes ago about they're being treated like animals, and I'm sitting here like, really? Wow. I don't know how that feels, you know. But at the same time, we need police officers, right? We need law enforcement, but the way they're being trained in the academy and then the way they're being taught with the union, I think it's a direct conflict of where we're trying to go as a nation. Like, we're trying to heal, but they're so divisive. You can see it in the riots, right? You can see the over policing tactics in the riot. So if, you know, one of my first steps would be to restructure the way the police union have influence on the officers. And if they can't be deprogrammed, then they need to be released, because they're not allowing the citizens to have an opportunity to have a relationship with these law enforcement. Now, I'm not saying that we are not, you know, we all are angels. We have bad apples as well. So the cross to that is to make sure that we start self-policing a lot of the stuff that we do for ourselves as well, and that goes back to community building. Like, do you know your neighbor? You know, have you talked to your neighbor? What about their kids? Do kids know you? Those are some foundational steps. And I got a list of stuff, but those are some foundational
that's
steps.
Good when you're talking about basically this whole notion of our needing law enforcement from your perspective, and then the second part of that is the union is problematic. So do we release them all and start back over? What are some other thoughts, man? Whether it be police in that particular structure, George Floyd is buried. This can't be the end. What are some next steps as dads, as black men?
Well, I run a mentoring organization called Fathers, Not Father, FATHERS, not FARTHER. We got 500 men standing in the gap right here in Clayton County, Georgia, right here in Metro Atlanta area. You know, how we do. So I'm starting out with fathers. I'm challenging all the fathers out there. We got 5 black powerful fathers who are active, committed. So I'm starting with the fathers. I love what Cyber said about starting to protect and serve ourselves. And so I'm asking black fathers to step up. And I'm not just talking about stepping up at the football games. I'm talking about when the pandemic is over and we go to the football game, then my challenge is every black father remains until every black child has gone home. And so when the police are there to remove our children, because let me tell you, the white scholars that I serve, when they hanging around, they are wandering. The black scholars that I serve, when they hang around, they are loitering. See, right there, there's a perception. White kids are looked at as just wandering around. They're just hanging out. They're just gathering. Black kids are looked at as loitering. So I'm challenging, and we started this, I'm challenging black fathers to do what I call fifth quarter. What is fifth quarter, brothers? Fifth quarter is when the game is over. Once again, we mobilize in the parking lots. We mobilize within a 5-mile radius of that stadium, all the restaurants, gas stations, parking lots, and we make certain that our kids get home safely. So that's how we protect and serve our communities. That's what I want to start with. I want to challenge us to be fathers, because guess what? The law enforcement is not going to look at us overnight in a sense of respect. We got to be real. I work with some great police officers. I work with some great police officers in the school districts I serve across the country, school resource officers. I work with them. But the problem is this, and let me be real. You want to get with the foundation. Let's look at the communities that we serve, brothers. Let's look at the communities and look at the type of police officers they're placing in those communities. Wow. See, this is what I'm saying. There's a difference in the police officers they place in Bankhead versus the police officers they place in Buckhead. The police officers they place in Bankhead are not adequately trained. And if they are, they're already coming in with a rogue mentality. And so such as that, we have to train our fathers then. We have to train our fathers. So I believe it starts with us protecting and serving our children, our young people, our women in our communities. And then we have to examine who are they putting in our communities. And y'all know what time it is. Y'all know the worst police officers are placed in communities where our young people and our people are underserved. That's just the reality of it.
Wow. So speak on that, brother.
I was gonna say, just to add to that part, when you think about on Brother Brown's point, you know, we think about the movie Boys in the Hood that came out some time ago, and you remember the African-American police officer and just how vicious he was. And I think about that from time to time to say, you know, what personalities are they putting in our neighborhood? So that just kind of reminds me of that. You know, we need to put aggressive police officers in areas that we deem are aggressive. So that's from a policing standpoint. But some of the thoughts that I had, and I put this on my Facebook earlier, Black folks in America, we're respected as professional mourners. As you know, we mourn with the best of them. We cry, we do all of these different things. And that's what we're known as. Well, since 2014, especially, we're now known as professional protesters. I'm from St. Louis. I'm from Ferguson specifically. I saw this movie before. Michael Brown was killed on my block. My dad still lives there. My older brother was one of 3 African-American police officers on the Ferguson police force. He had to resign because the pressure and the stress was too much. He just wanted to police the neighborhood we grew up in, and he couldn't do that. After 2014 into 2015, it was too much. He had to think about his mental. So something he loved to do his whole life, he wanted to do his whole life, he couldn't do it. So with that being said, we're professional mourners, we're professional protesters. The third step that we need to really get into is being professional policymakers and professional policy keepers. You know, we have to do some things that are going to stick to the ribs. And, you know, I know you alluded to it last episode, is that we have the energy of the youth. I mean, all of us brothers, we too old to be taking rubber bullets to the face. We're extremely too old to be taking these rubber bullets. I'm not saying that you have to be a certain age, but what I am saying is that I think at this point in our lives, we can better be utilized to help direct that energy. So, you know, anything that we can do, you know, with these young folks, we need to connect with them. We need to understand that was us 20 years ago, some of us 30 years ago. So as opposed to going to live in our nice houses in the suburbs, we need to be down in ground zero, but we need to be taking some of these folks and helping them learn how to use that energy. Because at the end of the day, when a rogue police officer pulls us out of a car, they don't care if we live in Beverly Hills or if we live in the worst neighborhood in the country. Some of these rogue cops, all of these rogue cops are going to see us all the same. And then just my last little point.
Yes, sir.
About defunding the police department, as they're thinking about doing in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It sounds extreme. It sounds extreme until you think about they've been defunding education for years. They've been doing that for years. And we haven't been marching or protesting for that. So it can be done. It's out of our comfort zone. It's out of the norm. But at this point in my life, I am all about destroy and rebuild. I'm blessed if I have 30, 40 summers left. I don't have time to wait for us to get it right or to play nice with the the stuff that we already have in place. We need to destroy and rebuild. And to me, I think Minneapolis, they're leading the way that way. I want to see it. I want to see it defunded.
My only concern with that is it's an election season and they're going to take it and run with it. Now, I'm not saying I totally disagree with everything, but I'm just saying not this season. Like you could behind it. You don't have to publicly say what you're doing. You could say like Biden, for example. I'm not a fan, but at the same time, I'm supporting him. He said, I'm not going to do it. And that was a good thing because a politician will never give somebody father to go and destroy something. And they'll take that little bit of tidbit and run with it. But to digress.
All of that. Good point, Simon Sapp. And Chris, we got to get you into this conversation.
I know one more thing, Chris, but to go back to what's your brother name? What's the brother name right here? This spoke. What's your name?
Kirkwood.
Kirkwood. So I like a lot of the stuff you were saying because both of you guys, because what it is I was thinking it's like, okay, so who's taking the information from these people that's protesting? Like, is there any gathering of information like data? Like, if you look at it, if we could take information and disseminate a certain message, for example, like guidelines, rules, or we can coordinate and we can set up meetings, post meetings. Like, is there anybody got boots on the ground that you know of that's doing an action network of information so that we can gather and then start data mining this stuff and see who's who and start reaching out? Because
that's a good point. When you talk about information, Sat, we're gonna move on from there because when I think about information, that notion of defunding, and anytime there's a political matter, and I know you don't want to give the opposition fodder, but anytime there's a political matter, someone is going to take it and try to push it to the extreme. And I like that point, Sean, that education has been defunded for years. So defunding in and of itself doesn't mean no police, but it does mean a reallocation of funding to something that might have more community impact.
Right. Like mental health and stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you think about, I was in Houston, we see it in Kansas City, you see it down in Georgia. Does every department need the latest Chargers and the latest Camaros and unmarked cars? Right. And how can some of those dollars be reappropriated to something that might make our communities allow for a little less policing? Chris Jones, what's on your mind, man? What do you think?
So perfect segue. Sapp just mentioned information and you expanded on it. What I wanted to lead and say is, and this is full transparency, if you will, in order for me to effectively and efficiently train my son up, my son will be 3 in July, by the way. I have a little one, as most of you guys know. In order for me to train him up in the way that he should, right, I have to first arm myself with information. We suffer for the lack of knowledge, right? You guys are talking about gathering information sharing, disseminating that information accordingly, making certain decisions, etc. Knowing our rights at the local level, state level, federal level, knowing how these things impact us, especially if they adversely impact us. What I'm saying is I need to become more informed and equip myself with a lot of the policies and rules and regulations that govern a lot of this very thing. Policing, that's not my background, of course, right? I got a couple of brothers. We got a couple of brothers. You had the sheriff on, Officer Hatcher, Dennis, Dr. Carpenter, a couple weeks ago. They shared some viable and valuable information that I'm an educated guy. You would think I would have known or I should have known. But I don't know. I cannot execute what I am not aware of and what I do not know. So to piggyback on what you guys said in respect for information, we do need to gather that information and effectively disseminate it in order to mobilize and effectively mobilize our people. Because I really do think the bulk of our problems is the lack of knowledge is absolutely killing us. And I use the word killing us loosely, of course. But that's my quick take on it. Again, I feel we really need to become more informed and educated on the rules, laws, and policies around us so we can effectively utilize them where we need to take advantage of them.
And can I jump in right there?
Real quick, and we're going to hit another topic. Let's go.
Okay, real fast. Well, go ahead with another topic because what I want to say is kind of extensive, but I can still go ahead and flow, Doc. Go ahead and flow.
Okay, so what I'm thinking about is another key component that came up, and that is this notion of who polices our communities. And we talked about deconstructing from the union level, and maybe if it requires a high back of everyone. But one of the key pieces that you're hearing more and more about at the scholarly level, at the university level, and you're hearing it from these young people, is officers and their lack of empathy. And how can we in turn have hiring processes that give us information to know this person will never be able to demonstrate a high level of empathy. And if that is true, how do they end up in our communities? How do we insist upon those things? Adapt that to teachers. In Georgia teaching, you have the Professional Standards Committee. And every teacher that's had every infraction. But we can't do that for law enforcement. How have we sat idle so long and allowed this to happen? I'm gonna submit to you that we're afraid of law enforcement, and historically we've been afraid because of their origins, even as slave catchers.
Right.
But as a community, we cannot be afraid of those who are charged with assisting us in our communities. No empathy. That's what I'm hearing from young people. What are your thoughts? Keith Brown, let's go.
All right. I mean, Sap, I'm not going to forget my point. So, Sap, I see you were itching to say something. So go ahead, brother, because I won't forget this point.
So that's back to what I was saying originally, right? So the union constructs the narrative, right? The union, you could say the union were commissioned by the slave owners. You understand? So it's to control us in a way where we're animals. We're all deemed animals. And if you look at profiling as the one of the major components of controlling or carouseling the animals, I think we need to stop profiling in a way where they say when you ask the police officer, oh, how you training? We're training them to catch criminals. How does the criminal look? And who created the profile of the criminal, right? And so they say, oh, we got stats and statistics. I say, well, what statistics are you going through? Are you going back to 1619 statistics, or are you doing something updated? So they have a history of controlling the narrative from that perspective, right? So, and then if you take a step back and say, okay, who polices our community, right? So what we should do is write policies on how our community should be policed, right? We're not going to the local city council and sitting on that meeting and say, hey, look, we need to change this law or go to that law. We need to look at the local laws. We need to look at, I wrote something the other day about it. The mayor, we need to go speak with the mayor and say, okay, let's look at the laws on the books and see how we could better impact the community, right? Our local community, right? So if we look at those laws and get rid of those laws that's targeting blacks, like the pull your pants up law. And I don't want to see butt crack, but I'm saying those laws are gateway laws to give more criminal cases for people that's something minor. It's an infraction. Oh, you got the pants down. Let me check you for weed. Let me stop and frisk you. So it's a gateway law. So those laws need to be disbanded. Those go through and you reduce what the responsibility of law enforcement is, and that will help us be able to police our own community.
Absolutely. So basically, that's a conversation we had with the chief the other week and some others. We have to have just as much restorative in terms of the repertoire of law enforcement, just as much as we have the punitive.
Right.
And unfortunately, we focus too much on the punitive. See, Sap, I believe if there was no, to use your example, pants too low law, that there's still a subconscious bias in the hearts and minds of too many people patrolling our communities, that just because they see a black body, they'll go through that same gateway that you talked about into the other. So how do we get the greater empathy? Keith Brown, let's go.
Well, first of all, from a professional level, I actually train police officers here in the city of Atlanta through the change management course, Who Moved My Cheese. And one of the things I do know is that when I treat them like human beings, like they're human and humane, then I do get positive results. Even when I come in as a trainer, there is that feeling that I'm coming in to right the wrong, or I'm coming in to get them straight. So I have to, first of all, understand that our law enforcement officials, they are human beings as well. And so I treat them as humans and humane. And let me just say this as well, from the professional standpoint, and just getting to know them, because guess what? They're fathers too, they're husbands as well. The second thing I want to say is this: I go back to that father's premise, and I'm not going to leave this father's premise alone. Right now, with our 500 men standing in the gap, brothers, I go into the local Waffle Houses with young men there, with law enforcement officials there, and I go in and I talk to these law enforcement officials and I say, listen, here's my card, here's my cell number. If these young men cause any problems, just give me a call. I may have 10 different cards of 10 different fathers that they can call. And I'm talking about just in our area, in our community, because that's where it's going to start. Having a relationship with our police officers, having a relationship, that's going to be very key. And that's going to start with the fathers, because we've been sending black women to the door too long. We've been sending black women to the PTA meetings too long. See, so if we go and pack the football stadiums on Friday nights as black men, we need to be able to pack the PTA meetings on Thursday and curriculum nights on Tuesday and stop sending our women. That's the problem. We're the only race of men that will send our women out to war while we sit on the recliner. Let me just keep it real. I'm not going, hey, I'm going to keep it real. Y'all know that's real.
Black dads, let's go.
So let me say this, and then let me say this. Let me also say this. When my good brother, when you were talking, Chris, when you're talking about the information, let me say this. The information is deep. Yes, we all need to have the information, but I tell my 24-year-old son, okay, comply, then complain. When you get pulled over, Attorney Brown, I don't need to let the officers know that you know your rights. I need you to be quiet. I need you to yes, sir, no, sir. Well, Dad, what happens? I can still, George Floyd complied and he got killed, yes. But the probabilities of you getting killed drop when you comply and you complain. So I'm saying this to all young black males, all young men of color. If you get pulled over by the police officers, comply. What I mean is do exactly what the police officer says. You complain when you get home. Let us advocate for you. Let me go in the courtroom and advocate for you. Let me make those calls, because what happens is when our young black men and our young black males get informed, we don't want them to be informed to disseminate the information that they have learned, because they are looked upon differently than those white males who I teach and those Asian males who I teach that get pulled over, and even those Native American males that I teach who get pulled over. So we got to be very careful. Yes, we want to be armed with the information. As men, we can do that, but for our black boys and our young black males, like my 24-year-old son, I need them to comply and then complain. And it's not popular. It's not, because one brother said, well, Mr. Impossible, you selling out. No, I'm buying into my son living. Okay. I'm not selling out. I'm buying in. So I want to say that. And so it goes back to
Brown. I'm going to say something to that, because we're going to have to build on it. I have definitely been a man, and my son is not that age yet, but I am definitely a man that wants my son to survive the encounter.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to survive the encounter.
Absolutely.
The challenge that we're facing right now is when you're looking at some of these situations, they're leaving our children with no options.
I get that. No, listen.
That's why we're getting to, there's so much that we can do, but we have to start looking at transforming systems too.
Absolutely. And empathy.
Transform systems. There are going to be too many people sitting around with that uniform on that will not leave our children with an option.
Oh, and
the only option then is death.
And I agree with you. And let me say this. That's why I told everybody today, take your souls to the polls. See, let me say this to you. If we protesting for the next month, listen to me carefully, because Brother Kirkwood, I stood in Mike Brown's dried up blood. I was with Dennis Carpenter on August 9, 2014, when he was murdered. August 10th, I was in Ferguson standing in his dried up blood. So let me say this, okay, as I spoke to those citizens before Sister Van Zandt got on the scene, okay? So Carp, you know what, Kirkwood, I feel you. I understand what you're saying. So let me say this. That's so important, but watch this. At the same token, we want them to survive, but that's when we can protest all day, right? We can but if we're not going to the polls, because guess what? We got to stop electing rogue officials who hire these rogue cops. It's all systematic. You and I, everybody on this session tonight, this empowerment call, y'all know it starts with policy. Y'all know some of these people out here just protesting and they just shut it. Brother Brown, I didn't see you at the march. Listen, my work I do daily to help prevent the marches. Okay. So long after the protest is over, I'm going to be protesting with my black behind in school districts across the country, all right, liberating young people of color, parents and families of color. That's how we protest. But somehow, like the brother said, we become professional protesters. And then guess what? A month from now, where are you going to be? You holding these signs that Black Lives Matter, and that's true, Black Lives Matter. But let me tell y'all what we have to get before we can get Black Lives Matter. We got to get these officers to know that Black lives are matter. Okay? Black lives matter, but we are matter. We are spirits. We are souls. We are hearts. And until they see us as human beings, they will still choke the life out of us because they don't see us. We are invisible to them. So yes, Black lives matter, but Black lives are matter. And we need more of us like these brothers on the call, Dr. Carr. We need more of us to mobilize people to vote, to mobilize people to be more involved and more committed. How in the hell can we continue to go to all these athletic events and we packing these stadiums and we packing these gyms, and I'm there too. We don't have no advocacy after that. And we see these police officers, they already frustrated because they don't want to be there after the game on Friday night. They got to tell kids, okay, call your parents. They announced this in the third quarter, call your parents. Now you got hundreds of kids just standing around, and black fathers, we done got in our cars and we done left. We done left, man. We gotta be more responsible, man.
Speaking of our youth, Sean Kirkwood, you're gonna make one more point on this, and we're gonna change gears. We're gonna talk about our youth and protesting and the support they need in that space as we look at them being the next revolutionary. Sean, let's go.
Let me just add this: is that I agree with everything, but the part that troubles me. I work in community engagement. I love what I do. I love, being amongst people who look like me, people who don't look like me. But the one thing that really, what I feel, and I'm sure you brothers feel it in your spaces as well, is that we talk about black fathers, we talk about black dads. Yes, we definitely need to step up in places where we need to step up. But what is happening is that they don't feel comfortable inside a broken system. And that's why yes, policy is where we can make immediate needs, get some immediate small victories. But what I'm really a proponent in rebuilding, and not from a radical standpoint. I mean, there's historical facts to support destroying and rebuilding. Anytime we have a president who lost a popular vote, but is still the president, people don't feel encouraged to vote. They feel like they're not part of the process. Anytime we have people who still don't know what the electoral college is. Anytime we have people, we have a nation where we have, instead of a voting holiday or a voting weekend or voting week, we have one day, pray it doesn't rain, pray your car starts, pray all these things are in place. So I'm saying all these things to make a point that people feel disenfranchised from the system, and they don't want to be a part of a broken system. So that's why we are losing a lot of good-natured folks who want to be a part of stuff. And with that being said, I think we can do both at the same time. We can affect policy, and we can also destroy things that need to be destroyed. And my last point is, we need to even take a look at what we want policing to look like, not fixing what's already in place. I mean, yes, there's a space for that. Mr. Brown, I'm nowhere negating the work that you're doing. You're doing some wonderful work. But what I am saying, though, is that we need to look at what policing looks like for us.
And that's why I was getting
that agenda, and we need to push that agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. So Chris Jones, I'm gonna come to you on this next segue, man. But we're gonna segue over. We're talking about young people, and if you've been watching the protest environment and being out there, as I have, and many of you are too, I'm sure, you're noticing that this movement is being led by young people. And I've told people the next revolution will be televised. It'll be on a smartphone, and it'll be in the hands of a young person.
Absolutely.
So here's what I'm going to begin with. We came from the era in which we were taught many of the teachings of Martin Luther King. That was comfortable to us in those school spaces. And we, of course, have turned over our education of our children to the system. Not so much for this generation. They're tired. Right here in my local community today, the school district where I served as superintendent for 2 years, outside of a board meeting where they're sitting 2 new board members, there's 50 to 100 students protesting the school board. Right now with megaphones, live. I was watching it as we came into this show. I'm afraid that if we don't stop critiquing that group, they're going to be mowing over us too. And I've sat out there in the protest on the plaza. I sat out there in Houston, and that armchair quarterbacking we're doing, young folks have a phrase. They say either you roll with us or you get rolled over. I'm afraid that we're going to become irrelevant, and we're going to get rolled over if we don't find a way to acclimate ourselves into this space that they're creating, because they're going to be the change. Sean Kirkwood talked about 30 or 40 more summers, and I can't help but think about that in terms of what if they're COVID summers. Doggone, that'll just be rough, because we only got a few more left. But they have a whole lot more left in terms of summer, and they're not going to wait on us. What are you thinking about the young people in protesting, and how do those of us in this age group play in that space? Chris Jones, get it started.
Well, I have to say, first and foremost, I totally support him. Obviously, the looting has kind of distorted things and taken away from the real gist of what they're out there for. But that's okay for now, at least. I get it. I understand. Kind of like in respect to what Mr. Brown said a minute ago. They're the younger, more energized. I've been hearing a lot of people say that, right? I get it. I got it. You know, we're professionals. Not that the bulk of them aren't, or what have you, but we are settled in our careers. We make our money. We have our families, etc. My point is, there's a different aspect of responsibility. My voice, I've yet to go out and physically protest. Let me put that out there. But my voice has been active, and I've been using it via social media, right? Using my head, using my fingers, right? Helping to direct, helping to instruct, helping to harness that energy and create action plans. Your first question was, what's next? What are we going to do? Well, that's just it. So we march and we protest and we do all of this other stuff. When that's done, or when it starts to kind of settle or die down, what are we going to do next? The next stage is what? So we mentioned changing policies, affecting laws, talking to mayors, talking to other elected officials, etc. I'm big on development. The word development is at the core of me. And the reason I emphasize that, I feel until we get enough people or more people in decision making and hiring and positions of hiring authority, we have the numbers, we have the people in key decisions in key positions that can help implement the very changes that we are out there marching, rioting, and quasi-looting for. So that's my point. My point, the next step of harnessing that information, harnessing that energy that these young people are out there emitting, and putting it into implementation via various action plans.
Before we go to Celtic Sap, this is the Good Trouble Equity Talk podcast, man. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for being out there. We got a good group listening tonight. Let's go. Here's what I'm thinking about these young people, Chris. And I was an action plan, strategic plan guy too. But right now, these young folks are saying we have demands. Mm-hmm. But we're not compromising on our demand. And an argument could be made from their standpoint that you strategic planners and you developers have done that work. How far has it gotten us? Because I'm still hurting in the position that I occupy. I'll tell you right now, I believe that I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. I believe that's what I do. I believe I can lend that anywhere in this country. But right now, the young folks say they're over those efforts because all they lead to is incremental change. So diversity, equity, inclusion takes you from having no minorities in your organization to 3, and that 3,000 employees, they're over that. So they're saying if you can go from diversity, equity, inclusion to being anti-racist unapologetically, you're going to have a problem with them. And guess what? When you think you're on their side, they'll put you off their side. Did you see the liberal mayor in Minnesota? When they were clear about their demands, what was the demand? The demand was to break down and defund the police department.
Right.
And they voted in. He said, what? I don't agree with that. Get up out of here. Get up out of here. There's no compromising on the demand. That's their perspective. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm talking about how do we play in that space. Celtic Sap, talk about it.
So one of the things, and this is right on time for me because I'm soul searching. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm gonna put a couple of things in perspective. You see how Napster broke down the music industry and it made it a streaming service, all the way fast forward to now the movie industry now is a streaming service. Well, people want change on demand, right? But they also fickle in what they want as well, right? Wow. So as strategic people as we are, we need to look at the long-term goal, right? And one of the long-term goals should be economics. Like we need to be able to, like that's why it goes back to my point earlier, is like, are we gathering enough information to communicate beyond the marches, right? Are we going to march 410 days to make a change?
Exactly.
Or are we going to get enough finance to be able to impact change? And one of the things I was looking at is that, okay, we need to start, and I have a lot of other ideas. They'll come out here soon, but we need to start finding a way to make our own Manchurian candidates. You hear what I'm saying? We don't have a system where we put our own through school, our own through our philosophy training, and then elect them, right? We as Black people should be monolith. We like, oh, we're not smart. We could be smart. Well, yeah. To impact change, we need economics. We need a voter block. And then we need strategy. We need to say, okay, long term. The Klan stopped wearing masks a long time ago. In the 67, they said, we're not going to be showing up in these rallies and with masks on. Want to know why? Because we're now judges, police officers. We're bankers. We're real estate brokers. We're politicians. Now we do gerrymandering. Now we do redlining. Now we police your Black ass. You know what I mean? So if we look at it long term, we can be able to make our impact through money, voting, and educating, right? So now we say, okay, who's going to be the workers? Well, we need farmers, but see, one thing I do is, like, I was flipping gas stations. I was working with this Indian guy. It was 5 brothers. They put their money together. They started off with 6 gas stations. Now they have 63. I flipped all of them for them in Atlanta. All the ones in the hood. So while I'm employing people in the hood, I had like local drug dealers, local street guys come up to me and like, hey, I want to be like you. I said, one thing you want to be like me. If you want to be like me, you got to save your money. Next thing you got to get out the block. And then next thing you got to get a job. So I started working with them. And that's some of my outreach, and my wife can attest. I started working with these individuals, getting them off the street, to the guys who coming back to me. It was like 6 months later, like, Sal, I kept your number, bro. This is what I've been doing. Off the street, out of trouble, in school. You understand? So that impact is like, okay, when you grab one, each one teach one. So I grab 5 or 6 and I go hang out and I show them a different way of life. If they're inspired, like if they're protesting, they're inspired, but if they have the knowledge that we have and we done gave them a card and say, hey, look, say these things, because if you don't think what is it, Antifa and the right wings are not out there protesting too, you're crazy, because they want to bring down all the police structure. They want to bring down all the government. You understand? That's not what we want. We need government. We need policing. But what we do need is a strategy for our young, so that we can say, okay, we mobilize, we get the mayor in front of the mayor. We won't say disband policing, but we will say change, move this funding over here. It's how it's the wording, and it's that. And if we strategize on our word and play, like they stopped calling us niggas a long time ago. they got code words now. So we come up with our own code catchphrase where it resonates, and we get them to do action items for us. Now we win it. But that's long-term programming, and we need to start now doing that and gathering the much information so that we can disseminate this information.
Okay, so going back to our young. I love that. Can I jump in? Jump right in.
All right, let me jump right in, because I love what Cyber said, brother. Brother, I love what you said. And that's deep, and that's right. And Doc, Carp, what you said is deep. They right now, they are rebels. Young people are rebels. But let me say this: each and every one of us on here, we have the ear of young people. I got thousands of young people on my social media right now. Right now, they are listening. Some of them are out in them streets. They are listening. I'm one of the directors for the South Fulton Arrow Youth Council right here in Atlanta, Georgia. South Fulton, they are leading change politically and economically. I'm talking about in their teens. I got teenpreneurs making money, impacting change. All right, they have candidates who are inviting them to speak at their rallies. Okay, some of the same ones who are down there protesting in Atlanta, Georgia right now. But let me tell you, here's the issue. Let me say this. Even when Dr. King them were marching, Carp, you know this. Your mom, my mom, when they were young, There's no difference. There's no difference. The young people complained back then. They complained when there were leaders out there back then. But what we better not lose in our community is a sense of structure. We better not lose our structure, okay? Because once we lose our young people, and when I'm talking about the structure, for example, you all know when they said be in the house when the street lights came on, we couldn't be walking down the block. We had to be in the house when the street lights came on. So while I respect my 24-year-old son right to protest and to be, strong, while I respect these teenagers out there, at the end of the day, I'm still Uncle Keith. Okay, and I'm still lit. This is the key. You already know this. You still engage the young people, Doc. Cop, you still engage them. I engage them, so they do listen to us because we're relevant. And this is the key. We ain't scared of them. I'm like Bone Crusher. I ain't never scared. I ain't scared of none of y'all. So I'm gonna talk to y'all. You're gonna DM me on my Instagram, and I'm gonna follow you. See, I'm gonna do what other adults won't do. I'm gonna follow you. Allow you to follow me, and I'm going to stay relevant. So I know what lit means. When I was on Love and Hip Hop, Cyber, and they was like, "Oh, Mr. Brown, we saw you on Love and Hip Hop." Yeah, but I wasn't on Love and Hip Hop as no clown. I was on Love and Hip Hop as a leader, speaking with me and Good Shooter them out there in them streets, doing gun violence rallies and things. So guess what? I'm going to always have the ear of the young people. You're going to have it. You understand, Brother Cyber? We're going to have the ear of the young people because we are real. So this is what we got to do. We got to get more adults to be more engaged with the young people and stop being afraid of the young people. Because once we can get adults, y'all know what, man? I'm so upset about this. Never in our history have black men been so afraid of black boys. I mean, it's never in our history have black men been so afraid of black boys. So this is what we got to do. Back to black fathers, man. We got to engage our young people. We got to talk to our young people. You understand? Play basketball with them. I don't need a formal dinner to show that I'm a mentor, that I'm in these streets. I don't need that. But let me say this. Until we engage our young people and make them comfortable and let them know we are in your corner, but we are going to have some structure, right, Sap? We got to have some structure, y'all.
You got to give them some hope. You got to give them hope.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah,
I'm going to push on that statement a little bit from the standpoint of I don't believe black men are afraid of black children. Here's what I do believe.
Where you live?
I believe that black men are afraid of any other black person who speaks the truth to power.
Okay.
Who are in these cush roles and these cushy positions. Case in point, I had a boardroom full of women fighting for equity with me in a school district. And by and large, the husbands were at home, except a few. I could call them by name. They know who they are. Here's why. They're afraid to put their voice in the space because they're not willing to sacrifice anything for the next generation. They forgot about the sacrifices that were made for them to be there.
Right.
And our young folks can see right through it. So the same grown folks who are telling our youth they're out there making a fool of themselves, protesting and using the word looting instead of an expression. Here's what protesting has gotten us in the last 12 days. While you armchair quarterbacking these youth, let me offer something to you. Minneapolis has banned chokeholds. 3 other officers got arrested with Chauvin. Due to the intervene rule that requires officers to stop other cops from engaging was implemented in Dallas. New Jersey's Attorney General said the state will update its use of force guidelines. In Maryland, a bipartisan work group of the state lawmakers announced police reform work. Reduced the budget for police in LA by $1.8 billion. Boston agrees to stop using public buses to transport police officers to protests. Police brutality captured on cameras led to immediate releases and suspensions in Buffalo and Florida, the likes of which had never occurred before. Confederate monuments were removed in Virginia and Alabama and other states. Street walking us to the White House has Black Lives Matter on it. Black Lives Matter on it. So if you're not afraid to engage with these young people and then make a difference, we're missing the boat. Sean Kirkwood, let's go.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I agree wholeheartedly. Policy, we're really making, we're making some headway. But, the one thing I want to kind of go back to is that statement about black men being scared of black boys. I think what it is black men are scared of real reading the book. And I got some noise in the background. I missed it. Yeah. I was gonna say, black men are scared of what we have neglected. So don't get me wrong. Every city has its own dynamic, everything. But if you neglect some things, then obviously you're scared of what you created. So that's what we're having. But I'll even speak to the point about some black people holding up white supremacy. The statement that Terry Crews made recently about if we focus on dismantling white supremacy, it'll lead to black supremacy, which there's no such thing as black supremacy. But Terry Crews and people like Terry Crews who've gotten a little taste of what they consider the good life or some white acceptance, they are so afraid of giving up that particular piece of the pie that they're willing to gaslight for white supremacy, because that's all they're doing. So what I'm saying is that, so what I'm saying is that, black men, it's a lot of things that we're not scared of. We know it's in our DNA. We're spiritual. We're warriors. But white supremacy is deeper than deeper than the surface. It's deeper than painting on the street. It's deeper than Democrats wearing kente cloths. It's deeper than all these things that we didn't even ask for. It's deeper than that. So once again, I'm going to say this. It doesn't seem like maybe it sounds radical, but it's not. There are certain things that we cannot transform. There are certain things that we need to destroy and build it up correctly. One last thing is that there are people who they want to get into Antifa and right wing and left wing. Right wing, left wing, same bird. We can't get caught up in the politics of the day. We have to survive our neighborhood. We have to learn how to police our neighborhoods. We need to learn how to step up when we need to step up. But at the same time, there are a lot of us who are upholding white supremacy as well. So that, once we get the police from killing us, there's going to be a whole bunch of cleaning in our own houses that we need to do. Just right now is not the time to address all things. We have to address one single thing.
We've got time limit. Parting shots, man. Number one, from me, thank you all for being here. This is the Get Trouble Equity Talks podcast. That 1 hour just flies by, especially when we got strong brothers. Thank you for helping me to help society. And thank you for your point just now, Kirkwood. Thank you for helping me think society build stamina for hearing black voices. Because society does not have the muscle to hear our voices collectively. Thank you for being a part of this podcast and allowing us to build that stamina. Keith Brown, I know your time is super valuable. Thank you. Chris Jones, same there. Cyber Sap, same there. Sean Kirkwood, always good, my brother. Take care. Party shot. I'm giving you 2 seconds. Kelvin Sap, let's go.
Hey, y'all, keep me in the loop because I'm actually considering running for U.S. Senate in Georgia. So keep me in the loop. I want to be more involved. I want to be the agent of change.
Good stuff.
So I'm getting ready to
talk. I don't know. Chris Jones, you see your little man, he getting restless. What's up, my brother?
Yes, he's getting restless. Hey, first and foremost, thanks again for having me on, Dr. Cochran. It's been a pleasure to be on this panel with you gentlemen. I do want to quickly say, Sap, I've known him for 30 plus years. I just met the other two brothers. But Mr. Brown, I did not know you were as involved with this organization, right, and spearheading it in the way and in the manner that you are. Even Sap, I've known him so long, I didn't know about all the things that he were involved in. So just to quickly segue from that informational piece that we mentioned earlier, this is the type of information that we need to have and share and get out to the masses to see how we can possibly join up and help these particular organizations go even further.
Absolutely. Sean Kirkwood, let's go.
Yeah, once again, Doc, thank you for having me. You good brothers, man. Y'all here doing the good work in whatever capacity you all are doing. Mr. Brown, I heard you talk about the fifth quarter. That sounds phenomenal. I would love to duplicate that work here in Kansas City. I think that's phenomenal, man. So once again, you brothers keep getting into good trouble.
Yes, sir. Keith Brown, take us home, man.
All right, man. I just want to say I love each and every one of you brothers. Black men have to start saying I love you. Also, I think I'm a Christ-like brother. I think we can take some lessons from the brothers in the Nation of Islam. If we can, and when I say this, I mean they're not afraid. They're on the streets. They're mobilizing. They're policing their communities. And the last thing, like Brother Sap went and got his little baby boy right there. Did y'all see that? That's how we got to get our black boys. That's how we got to get our black young people. See, we thought he was a distraction, crying and making a noise. But did you see when his father went and got him and sat him on his lap? that's when everything toned down. That's what we have to do as black men. We got to go get our black boys. We got to go get our black young men, put them on our laps, let them know that we love them, and let them know they are prospects, not suspects.
Amen. Amen.
I'll with them this weekend in Kansas City. Thank y'all for everything you do. Good Trouble Equity Talk over and out. Thanks to all of our viewers. Peace.